Today I wanted to show briefly some example portfolios and also walk through within Digication the creation of the assessment groups so that there's a space where students can actually go through and submit work for review, and there's spaces for rubric-based assessment towards specific competencies and also places where you can provide more written feedback to students as well. So at BU right now, the School of Public Health has a lot of activity with portfolios in some of the courses that are taking place. So there are groups of students that have already started developing courses, course-specific portfolios, and also some project-specific portfolios. And many of those can be seen in BU's ePortfolio directory. There's an option for you to go in and actually search by specific people. You can search by portfolio title or keyword tag, so that there's ways that you can filter that portfolio directory by specific students, courses that are taking place, and also specific competencies. And within some of the portfolios that are being created, James Wolfe, for instance, has created several portfolios that are support resources for his courses, and many of the students within his courses have also started developing their own portfolios. And one of those students that I had the opportunity to speak with last week was Ivory Kim, and she has a few portfolios that she started that are more course specific at this point, but she can actually create any number of portfolios with her account. So she might start developing a portfolio that could be organized around specific School of Public Health competencies. She also has the option of creating a more career-specific portfolio to showcase her work outside of the school as well. And it's easy to go in and see what kind of portfolio activity she has simply by going to the portfolio directory and searching for her name. You can then click on any of her portfolios to see the different types of organization and work that she's displaying there. As I mentioned, the portfolios that she's started so far are more course specific, so she can go in and introduce some of the topics that she's exploring in the course. She has a lot of written reflections about her work and ideas that are contained within the portfolio as well, different types of research that she might be doing. And each of the various sections that are created are quite customized to the specific course that she's taking. And in this specific course, within her portfolio, you can actually go and see the course syllabus, so you have an understanding of all of the different things that she's going to be learning as part of that course. And there's been different groups that have been set up that have the opportunity to actually collaborate on portfolios as well. So if there were groups of students that might want to contribute content to different parts of the portfolio, they have that option. And then within this portfolio, you can see an example of how she's starting to use this as a space to provide deep reflections about her work and her learning. In some cases, these are more journal-based, so they might be organized by time, but she also has quite in-depth descriptions of overall project plans that she's working on, where she might have gotten budgeting for her project. So a lot of information is being contained in there through text, images, in some cases video and audio files. So she has a lot of flexibility in different types of work that she's showing, and also different formats. And then once these portfolios are created, she then has the option to submit these portfolios towards assessment areas within Digication. And if you have students enrolled in assessment groups, they'll be able to see them right on their homepage. And I created a couple of samples here. One that's called the MPH Competencies Advising for the higher level competencies within the School of Public Health. And then a assessment group that's specific to her concentration. So she can have two areas where she can submit her work for various advising purposes as she moves through her major. When you click on any of these, we have the option to associate this assessment group with specific competencies. And that's done right within this Standards tab. There's a space where you can go and add and edit any of the standards and competencies that the students are going to be working towards. And each of those competencies can also be associated with a rubric. And I have some sample rubrics that are added into the system as well right now that are associated with these two competencies. And those are really built to your specifications. So I just have some sample rubrics there now, but any rubrics that you would like to connect to those competencies, we can build within the system and then make them available for anyone that's going to be participating in the assessment groups. So once you have the assessment groups mapped to the competencies and you have your rubrics selected, you can then create any assignments where you would like students to start submitting their work to you. And one of the simple ways that you can set that up, if you're interested in doing competency-based assessment, is to actually create an assignment that's labeled by competency. So it's really clear for the student when they go in and submit their work to you. They can essentially start dropping their work into these competency buckets, if you will, and they can go and add additional files, or they can archive parts of their portfolio towards these competencies at any time. And then whoever has been added to the specific assessment group as a reviewer will be able to go in and provide feedback to the student or provide them with more rubric-based assessment towards those specific competencies. So when the student is ready to submit their work to you, either from the portfolio or right from the course, they'll be able to go in and click on their evidence. And they will then have the option to either submit part of a portfolio, or they can upload individual files, or if you simply wanted them to type text into you, just simple messages that you might want them to submit, they have that option as well. If they're going to be submitting parts of their portfolio, they can either select part of their more competency-specific portfolio, or they would have the option of submitting from any of the other portfolios that they might have developed as part of their specific courses. So they can simply go in and check off which specific pages they might want to submit. They have the option of submitting a whole portfolio, but very often they might just be submitting certain portions of a portfolio for assessment. And they can also provide some written comments to the reviewers too about what it is that they're submitting and why they thought it fit for that specific competency. And once they save and submit their work here, it's going to be archived within the system so that you can always go back and refer to their evidence at any time in any assessment reporting needs that you might have, or just in terms of the reviewers being able to go in and access any previous submissions from semester to semester, year to year. You have all of that information submitted and archived and available for you to access. So once a student has gone and submitted their work to you, within that assignments tab, you'll have a nice color indicator letting you know that work has been submitted, is now waiting for your review. And when you're ready to go in and actually assess that work, you can click on that cell and it will pull up whatever content they've submitted to you, whether it's files or archive portions of the portfolio. So you can actually click on the work here. If they've submitted a portfolio to you, you'll be able to see any of the various parts of the portfolio that were submitted for your review. And that will open in a new window, so you can actually keep that open while you go in and do your assessments, or you can just take notes and go back and do the assessments later. If you're doing outcomes-based assessment, you'll be able to go and click on View Rubrics, and it will open up any of the rubrics that were connected to the specific competencies that have been mapped to that assignment. And you can choose one or multiple competencies depending on what it is that they're going to be submitting. And again, we can build these rubrics based on whatever rubric specifications that you had, but you can go in and essentially fill in a value for any of the rubrics that are available, and then you'll save and submit your assessment. And then the student will know how they performed toward that specific competency, and you'll also have those scores archived in the system. So if you did want to create any reports where you could look more broadly at student activity and how groups of students were performing towards those specific competencies, you've got all of that data tracked. And you can also see within the assignments tab that color is now updated to let us know that all of the steps within that particular competency for that student have been completed. So when you have a whole roster of students added here, this kind of matrix overview gives you a nice visual sense of how students are moving through their various competencies, whether you were looking at a higher level for the broader competencies for the School of Public Health, or whether you were looking into one of their specific concentrations.